Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Branding and the Beast, Season 2, Episode 5. My name is Alicia Disantis, founder of 38th and Kip Studio, graphic design, illustration, and branding. My wonderful
I don't know
co-host.
about wonderful, but I mean, I'll take the compliment. Shaun Bernstein of the Right Stuff Agency, kind of hiding the Right Stuff shirt, but here we go. Making your
Emoji clap.
thank you. Making your business sound better than I look most days. Although apparently today I look pretty good. So for those of you not on the video, you're missing out.
You're missing out big time. We'll have to take a screenshot
There you
and
go.
share it. He looks good today,
There's a first
folks.
time for everything.
So today we are talking about internal branding. This is something we haven't really touched on yet, and it's one of the more ignored areas of branding. Most companies think about their external brand, their products, their corporate brand, their selling strategies. Not a lot of folks talk about how critical it is to have an internal brand. The employee, if your employees do not believe in your company and do not believe in your values, you will not succeed.
It's almost a hard and fast rule. I had a great conversation with somebody, and I'll paraphrase them, but they are in the people management business, and they said, workplace culture should be a box that everyone can stand on, not a box you try to fit people into. And I thought that was just absolutely brilliant, because we think of it in these sort of hard and fast terms of, no, this is who we are, and this is who we tell people we are, and then we hire people who fit into this narrow hole, and if they don't, they're out the door. And that's not, that might have worked 20 years ago, but it doesn't really work anymore when we're really trying to praise what everybody brings to the table. You can't, speak at both sides of your mouth. And I'm curious to get Aaron's thoughts on this, where, you're saying that you're one thing, but then really secretly you're another.
Exactly. So I pulled some stats here. And this just shows you how strange the environment we live in right now. There are somewhere between 14,000 and 80,000 digital marketing companies in the United States. That's the range I got.
It's actually 14,001, but to be safe, they gave you that 80,000 just in case.
The average turnover among digital marketing agencies is 30%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really high. So what does that mean in this job market, in this economy, especially in an urban market like where our guest resides in Dallas-Fort Worth, where you're facing 1 in 3 of your employees are going to leave you in this year? What do you do to be successful and retain them and attract new people when people do happen to leave? And that comes down to internal branding.
It's a huge part of the picture, and it's something that I dealt with a lot. I mean, I think the folks who listen to us regularly know that my previous background was employment law, and before that, I did a fair bit of HR, and I teach in that world now. So I know what it looks like on paper, but the reality of internal branding is it's so much more than just what's on paper. Paper is just the tip of the iceberg. It's really about living those values and keeping those values current and flexible and changing.
Yeah. I was thinking earlier before we hopped on to record, who is a really powerful example of internal branding? It might be a little cliche at this point, but Patagonia. Their employees are so invested in preservation, global preservation, recycling, awareness, all of these things around Mother Earth, and the efforts they do to live the internal brand values. Their internal brand values are similar to their external brand values, but I mean, so much so that, geez, the owner sold off the company to a nonprofit or something like that, a global preservation nonprofit. I know I'm probably jumbling this, but that's pretty intense.
Very much so. No, but that's living your values and living up to your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a fascinating example. So I'm really interested to hear from Aaron. So Aaron Metzger, he is the founder of Genius Digital Marketing. They do a lot of SEO, a lot of really technical marketing web improvements. And they've been ranked very highly, won numerous awards from Google, from other best in class organizations. Really a cream of the crop digital agency here. He runs a small group. I think he has 10 employees, but I've really never seen someone who leads with such authenticity and internal values as Aaron does. So I was really eager to get him on this episode to chat about some of that stuff and what we can do to become better leaders and better business owners.
I was trying to think of an example from great internal branding, and I think Aaron's interested to talk to, because you don't have to have a 1,000-person company to have a strong internal brand. I'm going to give a shout out to a business in my area, which is actually the brewery where we frequent weekly and play trivia, called Town Brewery, and they're very much focused on. There's a lot of craft breweries where I live, and you're in Denver, and I'm saying there's a lot of craft breweries where I live. So that's saying something. I know who I'm preaching to. But these guys are really focused on community, giving back to the community, and they put their money where their mouth is. And they have they've grown significantly. They've got a fairly large team, but it is I know most of them, and it's a great place to work. You see a lot of folks coming in, employees on their off days, because they don't want to be away from that community. If
Right.
that's not a sign of a great employer, I don't know what is. It's remarkable to watch. So, little plug for them, and a huge shout out, because I'm so impressed with the culture they've created.
Right on. Yeah. There's a saying, I think I saw it on LinkedIn a year or two ago. Your brand is how your employees feel on a Sunday night.
That's powerful.
Yeah. I thought that was really, really well done.
That's really good. I like that a lot, because the Sunday scaries are not
Mhm.
uncommon and are just accepted, and coming from law, my goodness, are just accepted in a lot of industries. But if you do things right, they're avoidable, and people don't realize that part.
Yeah, they are. They are. Right on. Well, let's go ahead and enter in Aaron to our next segment here. So we'll go ahead and get him.
Fantastic.
Welcome back, everyone. I have Aaron Metzger here, founder and Aaron, I forgot already what you
Head of
told me to say
strategy.
about your title.
Yeah,
Head of
yeah,
strategy
head of
at
strategy. We were talking about my imposter syndrome and
mm-hmm.
how I don't call myself the
Can
boss.
we
I'm
call you
just
the
the guy
boss?
that
Is
works
that
here.
okay?
He is.
That's great. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I
I will
accept.
call him the
Any
boss.
and all nicknames are acceptable for
He is the boss
me.
at Genius Digital Marketing in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so stoked to have him on the show. We're going to be talking about internal branding. We're talking about aligning your company values with your employee values and how to really create a company that actually is just like a company that is a nice company that isn't mean to people. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a
It's
little bit about... Oh, sorry, I
I
didn't
was
mean to
going to say
interrupt you.
it's a lofty goal to explain all of the things that you want to discuss. I hope I'm
You've
equipped.
got this. Trust me. You'll be
You
okay.
are.
We don't bite.
You've got it.
Love it. I believe in myself.
Yeah. Well, so on that note, I wanted to ask you if you could share a few things about what you're doing now, how you got here, just a little bit of history.
Yeah. So I've been working in digital marketing for close to 15 years, and that started in college as a content writer, and obviously that transitioned into an SEO position pretty quickly. Because Google sets the rules for the way the internet works. Then shortly after, I started transitioning into agency life, and I worked at a couple of different agencies in Dallas. And after a while, you have some options. They're not great options. One is just stay kind of where you're at. The other one would be kind of go find a new job, or the third is just do your own thing and see what shakes out. Fortunately, I've got a super intelligent wife who's got a great job, and she was able to take care of me whenever I quit my full time job to be a freelancer. And then fast forward a few years, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago, and now we're up to 11 employees. And we've got around 40 different clients that we work with on a weekly and monthly basis, and we are onboarding all the time. So it's a lot of unique challenges that have changed over the last 4 to 5 years. And interestingly enough, up until my first hire, I'd never been a manager before, so I've never managed anybody up until this company, and never ran a business. I didn't take any business classes in college because I was a liberal arts major, and I took one marketing class in college, and I said I'm never going to be a sellout and work in marketing, and here it goes. I'm now running a marketing agency. I'm managing people. So if I can do it, then I think basically anybody else can. So that's where we're at. We focus a lot in commercial real estate because that's the nature of the world that we live in right now. We also work with all kinds of brands from Post to the Dallas Stars to companies like that, different kinds of brands. And so we get to experience a lot of different types of companies, and we get to flex our marketing brains to be able to accommodate new challenges all the time. So it's a wild ride working in the agency world, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, Alicia and I have been talking about, this podcast in preparation, and she's frequently using the terms internal branding and corporate branding. And I don't know if they're not as common up here or just, I'm a small company guy, so maybe not as much in my world. And I'm sure I'm not alone on this one. So how do you define internal branding in your view?
I mean, company culture, right? Internal branding is how you talk about yourself, and that's like how you talk about yourselves to yourselves, essentially. And what is the nature of your company, and how do you feel? How do you look? How do you present yourselves internally? And that's not an expert outernally facing, sort of brand style. It's not your website. It's not your marketing materials. It's not your social media. It's who you are as a company. It's your DNA. This is kind of what I would experience or what I would think of internal branding, right? Is that kind of in line with what your thoughts are too, Alicia?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we talked about this on the intro, Shaun. Internal branding, that if you distill it down to a few droplets, it's how your employees feel on a Sunday night.
I remember that.
That's
And
a good one.
I
That's a
didn't
good
make
one.
that up. I saw it somewhere on LinkedIn, and it sticks with me because it's really
Well, just put your name, after the quote, and now it's yours. Because that's the world we live in too. We can just take credit for whatever.
we could say that the AI made it up,
Michael
right?
Scott, Alicia
Perfect.
Disantis. There you go.
Mm-hmm. But that you bring up The Office, that's fascinating because The Office really, it's a very small, almost a minuscule percentage of that show is around the actual product or the service. It's that show in its essence
Yeah.
is internal branding. The nuances of how people feel, the passion that they bring to their role. Michael Scott, despite his many social lackings, he was the brand ambassador that you'd want. He would go to any length to embody, or he embodied the spirit of Dunder Mifflin, that they were doing something powerful and changing lives.
Yeah. With paper, one sheet at a
Mm-hmm.
time, right? So
Exactly.
I guess it made me wonder whenever you asked, what do your employees feel on Sunday night? And I guess I don't know the answer to that one, right? I could ask, but like if you ask, like I don't know. Yeah, but ultimately for us, we do things a little bit differently. Where when we started this company, and this goes way back from whenever I was in college and whenever my firstborn was came, and we were broke and living on food stamps and living in a kind of a roach filled duplex that wasn't too much bigger than 500 square feet. And so, whenever it comes to starting up a company, and whenever we realized that we were becoming a company, because at some point you just kind of wake up and you're like, oh right, so I run a company now. That's like a thing that happened overnight, and it just became a thing. But then you have this big responsibility to say, okay, well, it's not enough to just do your job. You also have to decide how you want to do your job, and who you want to be while you do your job. And a lot of those things come naturally for people, depending on the type of person they are, the way that they like to run things, if you're organized or disorganized or things like that. And for me, I think that this company just kind of ended up being an extension of who I am as a person, which is really focused around taking care of people, right? Um, and and I think that if there was anything about the company and the internal branding, or the workplace experience that we have here, is um, I want above all for everyone to take care of each other, right? Um, and that includes clients, that includes me, that includes each other, that includes the vendors and people that we work with, because it requires a lot, right? There's dozens of people that we work with on a regular basis, almost every day, that we're talking to, that are partners. And so ultimately, that's I think that that would probably kind of filter into what the employees would think on a Sunday evening, that they're just waking up and they're going to do a job that pays them, that they get to hang out with their friends and do some good work with clients that aren't terrible, that are really great, actually, really nice people, and help them succeed. And there's a lot of power to that, because what we do is really important, um, on a on a micro level. We're not changing the world or anything, but we are changing the world for some people, right? We're changing the world for their customers. We're changing the world for the owners and the employees that work there. So we've got a lot of responsibility. And so I think if you balance those high stakes um, with a sense of like care and concern, that comes naturally to the people that we hire, I think it all just became part of who we are. And on our website right now, it says, helping good companies grow. Uh, and that's a lot of what we take pride in, is we get to work with, art studios and local bakeries and, big companies like Post. And, we're introducing new market or new products to market that impact climate change, that actually remove carbon from the atmosphere, right? So there are things that we get to be a part of that are really cool and doing great things for the world, and taking care of each other at the same time. So I would hope that Sunday night rolls around and it's not a dread, but it's not as cool as like sitting around in your underwear playing video games, which is a lot of how I spend my free time.
I
Um,
haven't done that in a long time.
I highly recommend it, especially
It's
right
been
now because it is
decades.
so hot outside.
Decades.
So I think everybody listening to, just spend more time in your underwear. It's going to make your life so much
There's a
Wow.
reason I'm not standing up.
Well, don't stand up,
better.
Shaun.
You and me both, buddy.
Don't stand. Oh, men. Oh, you men.
I mean, our underwear are just shorts anyway.
I mean, that's just, yeah.
So
And
okay, so funny thing that like short shorts are becoming with an even with a dropper,
yeah.
are inching their way up for men
Mm-hmm.
back to the late '70s sort of fashion. So I bought some of these shorts, and the first time I sat down with them, my underwear was like hanging out the bottom of my shorts, and my wife was making fun of me for it because my underwear is actually longer than my shorts are nowadays. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what you guys are going to do with that information, but take it to heart because it's important. Your underwear should be smaller than your
If I learn nothing else
outwear,
from this
I guess.
episode.
You're gonna have
There's nothing else to learn.
you
It's
you
just make sure your underwear is longer than or is shorter than your
is it,
shorts.
yes. Well, Jared Kligerman from episode 10, he would really appreciate this because he was our CPG. He has a CPG agency. It's incredible. Yeah, he used to have an exotic peanut butter product that I never got to try, but he was very passionate about these boxer briefs that he was talking about them on our video cast, if you
We've
recall.
become an underwear podcast so quickly, I hardly even noticed.
I know.
We've got a client a client called the Underwear that's just now about to release a new underwear for the
I think if we go
outdoors.
for a MeUndies sponsor, because they'll sponsor any podcast these days, we could just go for the full trifecta.
Yeah. We changed the name, branding in the briefs.
Love
Branding
it.
in the briefs.
Oh my
Dynamite.
god!
Man, there's the hook. There's the hook.
Ah.
Now, so everyone that's listening, this is how marketing actually happens. These are how ideas come up. People telling jokes, and then it just happens, and you're like, somebody write that.
Exactly.
It's very, very rarely about Don Draper coming up with this amazing idea all by himself while he's drunk on his sofa. It's more about a bunch of people just goofing around until something makes sense.
Right. So
yeah.
When we were talking in the intro, I was doing some research around this. 30% of agencies employees turn every year. 30%. It's one of the highest turnover. And I know there's a lot of that stems from just workload, burnout, just sort of that agency hustle. But why do you think that this, at least within the agency realm or small businesses, why is internal branding typically ignored? I mean, not really that many people are talking about company culture and internal branding, unless you're a really big company.
Unless you're a really big company, you'll see. And if you've got a favorite agency or a handful of them, if you look at their social media profiles, if you look at their websites, if you look at their their own documents, it's never going to be as good as the work that they put out for other people. And part of that is because it's hard. It's hard to do marketing for yourself. It's hard to see yourself through the lens that other people see. Because it's like walking into your kitchen and you don't see that stack of mail that's been sitting there for 8 weeks, right? Because that's just where it lives now. And so it's kind of the same thing in the agency world, that we spend so much time externally focused on client brands that we forget to point those same magnifying glasses inwards to look at each other and look at ourselves. And so I think there's a realistic reason why there's turnover so high, and you kind of nailed it on the head. I mean, it's a few things. It's if you don't believe in what you do, right? If you're overworked, if you're not paid or compensated well enough, and if you're not valued, right? And all of those things are really hard in the agency world because margins aren't great if you do good work, right? And I think that's one of the challenges about being a marketing agency, is that you can either charge way too much and make a bunch of money, but get few clients, or you can try to help as many people as you can, be really busy, and be able to afford some things. But ultimately, in the agency world, there's a reason why people that work in agencies don't stay in agencies, and because it is grueling. It's hard. You're doing marketing for multiple brands at the same time. If you're in a big agency in a corporate, in a large corporate structure, you might be doing one thing for one brand all of the time, and it's like it doesn't stop. So there's a lot of redundancy to it, and there's a lot of workload because you're working with a lot of people that have a lot of questions, and really need things. And a lot of the time, you're not getting paid very well, honestly, is one of the reasons for it. Because I'll admit that we could do pretty monotonous work if we got paid really well to do it, right? And you can stick it out for more than a year if you're getting paid a boatload of money to do a job. You might not make it too much longer, but it would be longer than 30% turnover every year. So one of the challenges, so it is a challenge. You've got a lot on your plate. You're balancing a lot of things. You're managing a lot of projects. You're not getting compensated that well because a lot of this work is actually being done by lower level employees, and the management structure is where most of the dollars go. And that's just how all companies work, right? But ultimately, in the marketing industry, there's not a huge amount of margin to be had whenever you're talking about what your hourly rate is versus what you can pay your people. So I think that's probably why that exists. For us, our turnover rate, we've been around for 4 or 5 years. We've had 3 employees leave to go to different jobs. One took a job to be the head of marketing for all of Cirque du Soleil, which was really cool.
That is
Another one,
incredible.
right? Another one went to be a senior project manager at one of the oldest agencies in the country, and she's doing really well. Catherine was great. If you listen to this, Catherine, we miss you. Um, and we had Jai, who he was working with us for a few years while he was in college. He graduated and he was like, "I'm gonna go do something else." Cool.
Yeah.
And ultimately we keep people around for a long time. Most of our people are here for 3+ years at this point, and we're adding more people all the time. And the internal branding, as you call it, or the company culture, is really important to make that happen because you don't want to keep training people over and over again. And if you do it right, you like the people that you work with, right? And you don't want to see them go anywhere else. So that's where turning that magnifying in on yourself. And if you were if you were in uh, an industry that's Fortune 500 that has a 30% turnover, there'd be a solution for this already,
Yeah.
right? And we're moving in that direction. It was the early years of Google and Facebook that really started focusing on company culture in a new way, and internal branding and internal communication and team building and things like that. That was coming out of the late 80s, early 90s sort of directive sort of sort of management styles that we had before. So it was innovative. Apple did it as well, and so there was a lot of power and value that was coming from that. And now there's more innovation that needs to happen on top of that. So for us, we do things like a 4-day work week, 32-hour 4-day work week, because we all have our computers on us all the time, right? So it's not that you can be effective anywhere and you can work quickly, right? So
Yeah.
having a 2-day weekend is kind of a bummer in 2023. So a 3-day weekend is getting some of that that lifestyle back, and to address the overwork of people, we we track our time and we make sure that nobody is working more than like 30 hours of client billable hours a month or a week, right? And if somebody's having a hard time getting their work done, we figure out how to streamline that, because nobody should ever work nights and weekends. It doesn't matter what job or role you're in. If you're on salary and you're not being paid for overtime, you should not have to work. Um, you might want to, and maybe you can if you want to, but like it should never be a requirement. So a couple of those things are really important, and we implemented a base pay of $60,000 a year last year. So that's what we start everyone at, which is around 15,000, 15 to 20,000 higher than most starting agency jobs start at,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so paying people working less, focusing on work-life balance, and that's a big part of it. And so we don't have people turn over. We keep people for a long time, and it helps us build camaraderie.
So
So I also have a tendency to be wordy, so
I
I'll just
will
keep
I will
going
be
unless you guys
glad to
cut me
cut you
off.
off because I'm gonna have to edit this beast. So that's where I come to play. I mean, look, it sounds like you're doing something amazing. You've put in this great internal brand, and your staff retention is showing for it. I might be asking you what could be a hypothetical question. I've never dealt with it, but how do you deal with it when an employee does something that does not live up to those brand values or steps outside of those brand values? How do you set the course right? It doesn't sound like you're rushing to terminate, but how do you right the ship?
And and before you
It's
answer that, I would also add on to that. Do you have defined brand values that your employees all know?
Those are both good questions. So no, we don't have defined brand values. I guess our brand values are doing good work to help good companies. Is essentially what we do, and how we do it is the thing that kind of moves and changes all the time, and we have to be able to adapt. So we don't write it down. We just kind of live by what's good for us as people is good for us, is also good for our clients, right? So whenever it comes to brand values, like do good work, right, and help good companies grow, and that's about it. And whenever it comes to employees not living up to expectations or breaking the brand values or not doing their job or whatever it might be, it's like everybody has everybody makes mistakes, right? Everybody has off days. Everybody lets things fall through the cracks at some point in their lives, and so it's like it's fine, right? We're all fallible, right? We all goof up, every once in a while. And so ultimately it's like, is this a thing that just happened because there was an issue with a process or a procedure in the company, or is this something that we just missed? And ultimately, when somebody makes a mistake, they're already beating themselves up enough that they don't have to have somebody else come through and harp on, right? We just talk about it and we don't do that again, right? And honestly, it's kind of important for everybody to do that on a regular basis. There's one example is that we manage a lot of media spend, right? So millions of dollars a month in media spend, and as you can imagine, going to 10 or 15 different networks and all different kinds of things, it gets messy, right? And sometimes we overspend on an account. This was just maybe 6 months ago or so. We overspent a couple of $1,000s. We had to give a reimbursement to the client for $2,000, and the employee was like devastated. Uh, and I said, hey, it's okay because I did this 7 years ago, right? Chance did this, 2 years ago. Nate did this 6 months ago, and you can't build a procedure for everything. And sometimes you just have to learn hard lessons. And the people that we've got, they see it, they know it was a mistake, and they move on. And we don't beat them up about it. We just say, all right, well, you learned this time, right? And now it's the next one. But ultimately, uh, whenever we hire, we're always looking for people um, that have that sort of mentality, to kind of pick themselves up and move back on, and kind of self-teach and self-learn.
Yeah, that's what you talk about. Doing work for good companies that's very similar to my mantra. Like people that are making the world a better place, right? And we've talked about that at length. You and we talked about that. I think in our very first meeting on Lunch Club. Thank you, Lunch Club, for
Lunch
sponsoring
No
Club.
us.
kidding. Yeah.
Just
They're not a
not
sponsor. They're
they're
the
not
reason that we
sponsoring
exist,
us,
and
but
they've done nothing for it.
yeah, come Lunch Club, get it together. It's 2023.
Yeah, we need some dollars. Come on.
Come on, man,
Um,
come on. Uh, so something I struggle with is ethics, and the concept of like if you lead your agency with a purpose-driven mindset that you want to help, not hurt, and you don't even really want to be neutral, right? Because that's what all business is. You either help, you're hurt, or you're neutral. You want the plus one at all times with what you're doing. I recently had a situation where I had to choose between ethics and business. And it's one thing to preach it, it's another thing when you have to turn away money. I mean, you could talk about it all you want, but when it comes down to it and you have to say, no, I'm sorry, it's really hard to turn away money.
It's
So,
really
my
hard.
question to you, Aaron, is have you had a situation like that where you've been like, you guys do not align with our ethics and I'm sorry?
Yeah, it was a really tough time when that happened and when we decided to move in this direction. So we had a couple of clients, and I won't name any names, but they know who they are, and they one company was not being forthcoming with their clients, and we felt bad about that. Like they were doing some underhanded sort of things that didn't live up to like what it is that we wanted to identify with. And then another one of the companies was essentially taking money from their investors, right? They said that they were going to pay it back or whatever, and and so, but they were paying us a boatload of money between the two of them. They were paying us $25,000 a month in retainers, which is a lot of money, right? And that was all of the profit that we had. And ultimately, I did have a business partner at the time. I bought him out a couple of years ago, but he was moving from Las Vegas to the office building that we had purchased here, and I made the call while he was driving that hey, I let both of these clients go on the same day. So that was really hard because we just bought an office building, we just hired somebody, we didn't have a strong pipeline. He was moving across country to get here for the office, and it was scary. But I I, I think you can be an agency, you can be a company, you can make money by exploiting people, by doing the wrong thing, by working with unsavory companies. You can, right? But it's going to be short lived, right? Because when we talk about internal branding or company culture, those kinds of clients are going to eat your employees up, right, and spit them out, and just give them the hardest time, right? And so if you don't value your internal team members, if you don't value your other clients, if you don't value yourself, you'll continue to work for that paycheck and make the money as long as you possibly can. And we've worked with plenty of agencies. We've got plenty of partner agencies that we work with that still do that same sort of thing. For $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month. And I get it; it's a lot of money, but that's not the lifestyle I want to live. Right? Whenever I get up, whenever I'm going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday evenings because I got to get my video game time in my underwear. I'm thinking about tomorrow and thinking it's going to be a good day, right? Because I get to go to work at a place that I get to hang out with my friends, and we get to do good work with good companies, with good people that are all really nice, right? And are doing things to make the world a better place, providing housing, creating delicious pastries, right? To creating products that are positively impacting the world. All of those things are really cool, and we can feel good about. And you can't do that if you are sacrificing your own morals for a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
I want to get into leaving something really concrete with our listeners. So let's talk about sort of it sounds like you've done it. You're doing some amazing things that um, would work well for an agency of two people, let alone an agency of 11 that you're at now. What are some of the top, let's say the top three tips that you have for leaders and for companies who can create a really passionate, engaged team with that strong internal brand?
Yeah, probably, listen to Brene Brown's podcast. I think is the best way to do it. She talks a lot about vulnerability in leadership, and that's an important aspect because I don't care if you've been if this is your third company, eighth company, 20th company, if you're, 15 or, 150, every company is different. And everything requires a new outlook and a new strategy. So whenever you are creating a company, um, one of the most important things is to say, what do I want my lifestyle to be like, right? And if you want your lifestyle to be, hey, I only want to work, 30 hours a week. I want to get paid really well. I don't want my job to be stressful. I want to spend a lot of time with my kids. Well, here's the thing. Everybody that works for you wants the same thing, right? They all want the same thing. So you realize that you are just you are just a part of the same sort of lifestyle that everybody else wants, right? You're not an exception because you happen to get to this company first. It doesn't make you special. It just makes you, the person that did it, that started this thing first, right? But it doesn't exclude you from seeing other people for who they are and what they need. And so that would be the second one too, is hiring. Um, when you hire your first employee, it's really hard, right? Because you don't know what to do. Um, I had no idea who to hire, or how to hire, or what to look for in a person, um, and then somebody, and our first hire just happened to he was annoying us all the time. Like he was relentless. Wanted to come work with us. Wanted to come work with us. And then finally, we're like, fine, okay, fine, we'll give you a job. But the cool thing about that, and that I learned about it from that person, is like the determination that you can hire for is one of the most important things whenever you're looking for a new employee, right? For somebody to join your team, somebody that's self motivated, self driven, somebody that's growth minded, right? They might not have the skill set now, but they are determined to have the skill set. So hiring the right sort of people for the right reason is the second thing that I think is really, really important. At this point, I don't really even look at resumes anymore because it takes a phone conversation and a referral from somebody, and that's how we end up hiring most of our people. Because a resume is, it doesn't matter, right? We hire without degrees, we hire with degrees, we hire almost exclusively outside of the marketing industry because there are a lot of really, really smart, talented, motivated people that are working in other jobs. We have a teacher, we have a logistics person, we have somebody that worked at a funeral home, we have a bartender and a bar manager, right? We've got a salesperson that was a recruiter, right? So we've got people from everywhere, and the only thing that ties them together is that they wanted to learn and they wanted to grow. So that's really important as who you hire. Um, so take care of people, hire well, and the third one, um, make sure to give yourself some leeway, right? Because it happens to be that business owners are the types of people that are perfectionists, or they'll beat themselves up about things, or they'll go over stuff in their head over and over again. Like whenever you lose a client, which we did yesterday, for various reasons, you might beat yourself up. But the point is that you're just a person, just like your employees. You make mistakes. You're living this new business lifestyle, and you're trying to figure it out just like everyone else. It's like whenever you have your first kid, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But you just kind of have to wake up every day and be a parent. So it's kind of like that with running a company. You just kind of have to wake up every day and be a business owner. But it doesn't mean that you're infallible, and it doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. So you got to give yourself some grace, right? Don't take yourself too seriously, and don't be too hard on yourself.
I love that. I have one last question.
Yeah.
It's a surprise question.
Ooh, I
Do
love
you
that.
now? Will you? Will you in 2 minutes?
It's a different
Oh,
surprise question, Shaun, than even you
I'm
have heard it.
preparing to be surprised. Wait, let me. That's my surprise face. I don't have my nails done,
Oh, I
but you
have
get
two.
it.
Okay, so I have
Okay.
two. I don't know. I don't even have
Aaron's
my
just cooler
nails
than all
done,
of us.
man.
I painted them right before the show because I wanted to be able to do this.
I really like that. I really
They
like that.
look terrible, guys. You can't tell because we're on a small screen, but I am really bad at it. So
I can tell. I can tell.
you can tell that I'm really bad at
Yeah,
painting my.
I can tell they look bad. Yeah. The I'm trying to I'm trying to decide which surprise question. I
Just
have
go
two
for
of them.
both.
Okay,
Let's do
okay.
it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the first one.
I believe in us.
And it's gonna flip. I'm flipping the script on it. What's something that you really like that most people don't like?
Like in life or in business or in
Anything.
marketing.
Anything.
Uh, Something that I like. My wife could probably tell you. Okay, so I'm kind of annoying, right? It's one of my favorite things to do is like annoy people. I don't know why that is. Like I never grew out of being a child. I really like to just butcher songs. Whenever I'm around other people, like singing off key, changing all the words, really messing up, everything about the song. And I just really like doing that for some reason. And I don't think it's valuable for anybody else in the world. But it's just one of my favorite things to do. So I do it all day, every day. I'm just singing broken songs of pop hits and too much to everyone's dismay around me.
So you make up like different lyrics that rhyme and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually really inappropriate. So it's not like, it's not around the kids, but my wife gets to hear it, because she's an adult. So she has to listen to my terrible music. But she's a singer, right? My wife is a theater person, and she sings, so she can
Oh.
appreciate that I sing, and she also knows that I'm doing it to irritate her. But yeah, so
Oh man.
yeah,
Okay, so the answer is you like to sing songs off key and mess up the lyrics.
Brutal.
all the time.
All right, I'd say that's something that most people don't like to do.
Yeah, and most people don't like it when I do it, so
I would
it's
not.
kind of
Yeah, I
like
would not like that.
double
I would not
bad,
like that.
right?
What's the other surprise?
Okay. No, I'm not saying it.
Oh, was that our last question?
That was our last question, I think. I mean, I can ask it.
You can
We're
ask
at
it.
40
We're
minutes.
gonna have
This is
to
going to be the longest
cut
podcast.
Because
this
I talked to
thing
you.
with a shovel. Go on.
We'll just have to cut out. We'll cut out all the important stuff and just feed this.
Just leave
Exactly.
the underwear parts and
Yeah. Okay, so here's my other question. If for one day you could go back to any moment in time in human history, when would you choose? And spend one day.
and spend one day. Um, this sounds really hokey, but it's like the first thing that popped into my head, and I think I would actually go back to it. It was the day my wife and I got married.
Aww.
Yeah,
Aww.
yeah, she can probably hear me. She's got an office like close by, and I heard her just walk through the door, so like I know that she's around, so maybe that like
He's getting
influenced that
brownie
decision.
points. He's
But
valiant this.
yeah, so it was kind of a fun thing. We got engaged, and a couple of months later, my father was diagnosed. This wasn't fun, but my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he was terminal, so he was in the hospital. And he said, he he knew that he was going to miss out on our wedding, and he said if there was any one thing that he was going to miss out on, it was going to be us getting married because he really wanted to see us get married. So my wife planned a wedding in 2 weeks, and we got married at his hospital. And all of the nursing staff and the doctors came down to this prayer garden outside of the hospital, and my dad was in attendance. My son was the ring bearer, and we had so many people, a photographer, a musician, catering companies, all kinds of people just come out of the woodwork to really support us when we needed it. Because it wasn't about like the money, it was about the time. Like, how are you going to find a musician to play at a wedding with 2 weeks notice, right? How are you going to find a wedding photographer with 2 weeks notice, right? And so it just happened. And I remember thinking that like this was one of the most special days that I'll ever have, because like there was such a sense of community and like and people holding us up. It felt like so warm and comfortable and happy. But I also got to marry my best friend, which was really great. And she's super. She's beautiful, and she's so intelligent. But she makes dumb decisions like marrying me every once in a while. We don't hold it against her. But then my son was there, and my dad was there, and then he ended up dying just a couple of weeks later. And so being able to go back in that moment, I think would probably be the one.
Aw.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell my
Touching.
wife. She'll probably give me a smooch for it.
That's
So
touching.
So give us the real answer when we stop recording.
it's not gonna make it in the episode.
Oh my God! Tell her to come out. Tell her to come in here. All right. We are gonna run out of minutes on this. We're gonna run out of tape. We're gonna run out of tape. Aaron, where can people find you or find your agency if they're interested in learning more?
I just Googled myself yesterday. Aaron Metzger, and I don't show up in the top results, so that's not the way to do it. Some other PhD, I guess he probably did some good things. It makes sense that he ranks first. But our web address is geniusdm.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Aaron Metzger, or just like throw out some smoke signals. I'll find them. Right, there's a bat signal that you can maybe find. You can cast it out, and I'll find it. I don't know. However you want to reach out, I'm around.
I don't know what your icon is.
Ooh.
What's the signal? I mean, that's.
But it's changing. We're actually going through a rebrand right now. So I told you about that. So
yes, but I mean you personally.
Ooh, me personally. That's a good. I'll have to think about what is my personal brand icon.
Yeah, there you go. There you
go. It's probably a pickle. Honestly, it's a pickle. It's a pickle.
That's fair.
It's a pickle.
It's like I
bought a sweatshirt today. So this isn't going to be in the episode anyway. But like it says, the T-shirt has a pickle jar on it, and the words say "pickle slut," and I'm just like, yeah, I love it. I love pickles.
That's
did part of you never get off the boat? Like
pickle
the whole vibe.
Yeah, it's so it's an inside story from back in college. I was contributing to the delinquency of many minors whenever I was throwing a house party, and so I ended up getting the nickname Pickle Jar at that house party, and that was about 20 years ago. So I guess I'm just and some of our employees' kids, they call me Pickle. And they don't even use my name. So I guess, I'm a pickle.
But now we got to go like half sour, full sour. Like we're not talking
half sour. It's got to be a half sour.
Interesting.
It's got to be a half sour. It's like too sour you can't do, and nobody likes bread and butter pickles. Let's be real.
But the half sour, I will fight you on that. I think you got to go full deli. Like it's. Yeah, I don't play games.
Wow. Yeah, I make my.
Oh, okay.
I make my own pickles, and so
I've done it. It's a pain in the ass.
But people like their pickles different ways. Like sweet relish exists for somebody, right? Somebody likes it, and so that's why it exists. They don't make dill relish anymore, so sad day.
Okay. Well, this has been weird. Sometimes I said that on podcast. Well, this was a weird experience.
I think we can start with that one. Well, this has been weird.
We can't even. I feel bad even like cutting.
Parts of it will have to go in. We'll have to really have a good time editing.
Oh my God.
Alicia will have to edit in tandem because we can't make unilateral decisions on this one.
I gotta start posting these on Fridays. Like we were in Stitches last time with Tim. Our last guest, he doesn't like rice, and he's married to a Chinese woman, and his wife is texting me on Instagram saying I made rice for dinner. Yes. Now
That's
it's this back and forth
hilarious.
dialogue where I'm
Oh my
messaging
god, I
Tim.
didn't know that.
I was like, "Who did?" He said, "I don't like white rice," because I asked him what an
Oh,
unpopular
that's
opinion. I'm like, "Who doesn't like white rice?"
I mean, I like white rice with stuff in it.
I'll just eat it
Yeah,
plain with kimchi. You guys eat
yeah.
kimchi?
yeah.
White rice and kimchi with an
Mm.
egg.
You know what's funny is that I married a vet, but I'm not much of an animal person. So that was a weird thing for us. She had five animals and I had a son. So the scale was like, I think she still wins here, you know.
Yeah,
So I adopted five animals and
How
she's
old's your
got my
little
son.
guy?
So
Oh, so
yeah,
not so little.
he's 10 now. So that was
not so little.
not so little anymore. He's starting fifth grade next
Wow.
week.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird knowing that he's going to be
Yep.
driving in like 5 years. I don't know what to do with that. So God help us all,
Enjoy those hormonal teenagers.
All right.
I guess. Looking
Let
forward to my 3-year-old daughter is really going to be the one that takes us to the
Good
ringer. So
times. All
let's
yeah.
wrap
right.
this puppy up.
All
Aaron,
right. Thanks,
thank
Thanks,
y'all.
you
buddy.
so much. Really
Of
appreciate it.
course. Yeah.
Great to talk with you.
I'll hit you up, Shaun, for
Yeah,
a
you're
beer
from
and some
Toronto.
Cool
You
one of
let me
these
know.
days.
I'm
All
open for it.
right.
Welcome back, everybody.
We are go.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was a good time.
Yeah, it absolutely
That
was.
was that was a lot of fun.
I knew you'd enjoy Aaron, and I met Aaron. Geez, I think during the pandemic, and he's blown me away. He's a really he really walks that line between being a business owner and having employees and just being a genuine person, like no one I've ever met before.
Well, and I think the thing that he's a humble guy. I think the thing that he sold short and that, is really integral to his brand is him. And as much as, he's set some great policies, the 4-day work week and,
Hmm.
just having a really sort of, warm, hospitable workplace. But he strikes me as somebody who is really leading by example on that one. And that's what's so core, especially for a small company. You can set all the rules you want. If you're not going to live by example, no one's going to take you seriously.
Yeah. And that reminds me from our last episode, Tim, who we mentioned just a few moments ago, Tim, who doesn't like white rice or any rice, he said the exact same thing. He said, well, that was his unpopular opinion. He said, his first unpopular opinion that employees lead by, or the employers lead by example, that you have to set the stage for how your employees react. And you can't just put the blame on them and say they react or they act a certain way in my company. And then you're totally removed from it.
There's a line of you teach people how to treat you, and I think the same, frankly, is true in in that internal branding. You teach people how you want them to behave in your business. And so if you are going to mistreat people and then be shocked when they either make a mess of something because they're just not thinking clearly, or they retaliate, or they're treating others badly, and suddenly you're clutching your pearls. That's not how that works. If you treat
Right.
people well, you're going to inspire them how to treat others, including their colleagues, including your clients. Period.
Exactly. Exactly. And if one of your brand values is excellence, I mean, so many agencies strive for excellence within their field. I know I do. If you want that to be a value, then you have to treat your employees excellent and you have to give them the space to take classes, to learn, to visit museums, to go to the theater and see a movie that's culturally valuable. Like you can't expect them to produce excellence constantly but never be able to grow and learn as a professional. And that's one of the biggest things I see within design and marketing communities and also SaaS communities is that you don't ever give an opportunity to learn. You got to keep learning to be excellent.
The other thing that was interesting, and the thing that, I'd put a little caution out, and I'm curious to talk to our future guest who works in the international space, is that he hasn't papered anything in terms of his values. They're
Right.
just they're like, they're on the website as kind of a broad, but they're not on paper. You can get away with that with about the 11-person mark. He's kind of at the cusp of where that gets harder to do.
I agree.
When you
I
get to
agree.
sort of the 15 plus, you lose the day to day hands on control. You have to be able to delegate, and you have to be able to communicate those values in a way that makes sense uniformly, and you can then use them as, no, this is how we do things. And if someone gets it wrong, you show them, no, take a pause. This is how we do things, and this is why we do it that way. So, it works at that size, but he's just on that cusp.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you have remote workers, because one value can mean something very different in a different region of, well, geez, the United States is so different. But, if I had an employee in Canada or Mexico or what have you, totally different cultural context.
Yeah, precisely, and just different ways of doing things and different, accepted norms, etc. But no, what a delight! What a great guest! Thank you
He
for
was.
finding him. That was a
You're
treat. I
almost.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh,
And thank you to all our listeners and watchers. Episode 5, season 2, we're cruising right along here. Thanks for being on this journey with us.
woohoo!
Again, my name is Alicia Disantis, founder of
And where can
38th
they find you,
and
buddy?
KIP. They can find me at 38th, that's 38 TH and KIP, KIP. You can search that in Google. You can find me on Instagram under that, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also find me at Alicia DeSantis. That is DI lowercase s ANTIS.
There you go. And I am Shaun Bernstein, even though Alicia didn't ask. I am still, despite that, I'm still Shaun Bernstein. I think we got to this last time.
We did this.
So
Yes.
you become too comfortable with your co-host. That's the problem.
I have the expectation that you just. I guess
I'm going to hold up a
I
card
just
that says "Throw
expect.
to Shaun," and
Wait,
then just an applause sign.
Shaun Bernstein, everyone, founder of the Right Stuff agency based in Toronto. You can find him at.
That jackass. You can find him at www.therightstuff, WRITE, stuff.agency. You can be anything nowadays. I think by the time this goes live, my new site will either be up or close to up, which is very exciting. The new Brandon and the Beast site will be up, which is also very
Yes.
exciting. There's a lot on the go. So yeah, check out the website, Instagram, The Right Stuff Agency, LinkedIn. I am all about that LinkedIn life, as getting this new course together. SHAUN Bernstein, and yeah, thank you everybody. We will see you next time.
Thank you.